Somewhere between a hamburger, a steak dinner, and a plate of old-fashioned comfort food sits one of America's most humble classics, Salisbury Steak. It started with a very serious doctor and his very serious love of beef, but by the mid-century it had become pure gravy-covered comfort. So today we're bringing back that vintage favorite inspired by a 1940s US Navy recipe, simple, hearty, and made for feeding hungry sailors. Hello my friends and fellow Apollonians, welcome back to Apollo's Diner. I'm your host Apollo Jupiter, and if a humble ground beef patty ever deserved a little dignity, a good brown gravy, and a proper place at the vintage dinner table, this is the one. Let's get started. We'll start with the heart of the whole dish, the beef. For this home-sized version I'm using 1.1 pounds or 500 grams of ground beef. That should give us about 4 nice patties in the end. To that, we add about half a cup or 45 grams of regular fine breadcrumbs, half a teaspoon of salt, a little black pepper, and about half a cup of 55 to 60 grams of grated onion. Yes, grated. If you're really good with the knife, you can dice it very finely too, but then you have to work for it. We want it really fine. This way it melts right into the meat and gives us that lovely savory flavor without little onion chunks trying to escape from the patty like they've got somewhere better to be. Makes all the difference. Now we add about 1/3 cup or 75 to 90 milliliters of beef broth. The old Navy style recipe used broth right in the meat mixture, which helps keep it tender and gives it a little more character. Then we mix everything together gently. We want it combined, but we don't want to knead it like bread dough. Salisbury steak should be tender, not something you could use to patch a hole in a ship. Once the mixture holds together, we shape it into 4 oval patties. A little flatter in the middle is good because they will puff slightly as they cook. And there we already have it. Humble beginnings, but already on the road to respectability. While these rest for a moment, let's give them a little historical dignity too, before they get upset about not being properly introduced. Salisbury steak goes back to Dr. James Salisbury, a 19th century physician who believed very strongly in chopped lean beef as health food. His original version was much plainer, basically beef shaped into cakes and broiled, and it was originally designed to help soldiers suffering from digestive issues during the American Civil War. But over time, especially in American home kitchens and practical cookbooks like the US Navy ones, it became more like the dish we know today: ground beef, onion, breadcrumbs, and a simple brown gravy. Which frankly was a very good decision, because if history gives us gravy, we accept the gravy. Now let's get these beauties into the pan. For cooking, we're heating a large skillet over medium to medium-high heat. Let's add a splash of neutral oil, just enough to keep things from sticking. I also like to add a little clarified butter for extra flavor. But if you're just using oil, that is perfectly fine. Alright, the patties are ready to dive in. And listen to that sound. That is the sound of dinner becoming serious. We want to brown them nicely on both sides, about 3 to 4 minutes per side, depending on the heat and thickness. Don't move them around too much at first. Let them sit, let them brown, let them build a little character. We're not just cooking them, we're giving them their dinner jacket, because a pale Salisbury steak is really just a hamburger with stage fright. Then we take them out of the pan and set them aside for a moment. They look very pleased with themselves, and honestly, they should. And whatever you do, don't clean the pan. All those brown bits at the bottom are not a mess. They are the beginning of our gravy. the most important part of this dish. We want about 1.5 tablespoons or 20 grams of fat in the pan. If there isn't enough from the beef, just add a little more butter. If the fat thinly coats the bottom of the pan, we're usually good to go. Now we sprinkle in 1.5 tablespoons or about 12 grams of flour and stir it into the fat. Let it cook for a minute or two, just until it starts to smell a little nutty and turns lightly golden. Then we slowly whisk in about 1.25 cups or 300 milliliters of beef broth. Keep stirring so everything comes together smoothly, and make sure to gently scrape up all those brown bits from the bottom of the pan. That's where the flavor has been hiding. Once the gravy thickens, we season with salt and pepper to taste. And to give a little nod to Dr. Salisbury's original version, we finish with a few dashes of Worcester sauce. Now you can put the Salisbury steaks back into the pan, right into that lovely brown gravy, or serve the gravy on the side. I prefer serving it on the side so the patties keep that nice brown crust until they hit the plate. For serving, I'd keep it classic. A good spoonful of homemade mashed potatoes, some peas and carrots on the side, and our Salisbury steak right where it belongs, front and center. Now we spoon that brown gravy over the top, and suddenly our humble little patty has a suit, a hat, and somewhere important to be. And I have a very good idea where. Right, time to give it a taste. Now that is simple, savory, and wonderfully comforting. The beef is tender, the onion melts right in, and that gravy ties the whole plate together. It's not fancy, and it doesn't need to be. This is the kind of old-fashioned dinner that feels like it has been waiting patiently at the table for us to remember it. Quick, comforting, and that's what counts. And that, my friends, is our classic Salisbury steak. Simple, hearty, and covered in the kind of gravy that makes a humble dinner feel special. If you enjoyed this little trip back to the mid-century dinner table, please leave a like and subscribe for more vintage recipes, timeless classics, and a little old-fashioned charm. And if you want to keep that comfort spirit going, don't forget to check out these favorites right here. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.